The suspect is 24-year-old Jalen Brazier, Foster's cousin, who told police the two were hanging out when Foster suddenly stopped breathing. He then panicked and put her body in a dumpster. DPD spent months searching a dump site in Macomb County, but Foster's body was never found.
The cousin of missing East Point teenager Zion Foster, who was 17 years old at the time of her disappearance, had been released from custody less than 1 year after being sentenced for lying to police about throwing her body into a dumpster. On March 30th, 2022, her cousin, 23-year-old Jalen Brazier, appeared in court to accept a plea deal on the charges of lying to a peace officer in a violent crime investigation. The father of two claimed he was with Zion when she was last seen on January 4th, 2022. He claimed she stopped breathing for an unknown reason while they were smoking marijuana, so he panicked and put her body in a dumpster. He was sentenced in March to between 23 months and 4 years in prison, but on Tuesday, he was released. According to Zion's distraught mother, Sierra Milton, she was not made aware that his sentence had been changed. The Michigan Department of Corrections placed Jalen in a special alternative incarceration program, otherwise known as boot camp. His sentence was drastically cut, and he ultimately spent less than 10 months behind bars. Zion's mother says she was never told that this was happening, though she received a note from someone close to the case that it was possible. Detroit police recently spent months picking through a landfill, trying to find Zion's remains. However, her body was never discovered. Without Zion's body, the case against Jalen becomes more difficult. On the day of his release, Detroit Police Chief James White said detectives are still talking to Jalen to try to get more information and charge the case the way it needs to be charged.
This is absurd, it's unfair, and it's not just.
Sierra Milton is reeling over the release of Jalen Brazier, who's likely the last person to see her daughter alive. Brazier was released from prison Tuesday, 9 months after he was sentenced for lying to investigators about Zion Foster's disappearance.
Why is this man free? What? I can admit to this and still be let free.
Zion went missing after leaving home in East Point to visit Brazier, who's her cousin, in Detroit last January. As friends, family, and police searched for her, Brazier told East Point investigators he did not know where she was or what happened to her. He later admitted to putting her body in a dumpster and claimed she stopped breathing while they were smoking marijuana.
I was on panic mode ever since that happened. Her mom at one point talked to me and I couldn't bring myself to be like, your daughter just died. What do I do?
Brazier was sentenced to 23 months to 4 years in prison for lying to police, but ended up spending 9 months behind bars. His early release the result of a 90-day special alternative incarceration program, which Macomb County Judge Edward Servito approved.
That boggles my mind for the judge to give a more aggressive term because of hearing the case and finding out what Jalen said he did. It could be signed off and I not be notified.
A group of Detroit police officers dedicated their entire summer to searching for Zion's body in a Macomb County landfill, but never found her. Chief White says DPD's investigation is not over.
That case is still wide open. We think we've got a strong suspect for that case. Our detectives are constitutionally doing everything they can to talk to him, investigate him, visit with him, to make sure that we get what we need to charge that case the way it needs to be charged.
In the meantime, no body means no determination as to how Foster died, and no closure for a mother still mourning and still desperate for answers.
What I want justice. I want him to pay, and I want the truth to come out. This is just not something that's acceptable.
It's a day Sierra Milton thought was still at least a year away. The main suspect in the disappearance of her daughter, Zion Foster, was released from prison early without her knowing.
I mean, imagine my disbelief. And it's absurd. And we're just supposed to be okay with it. It makes you lose faith in the system. People already have a hard time believing that they matter.
Because Brazier was never charged with Foster's murder, attorney Todd Perkins says he is eligible for special alternative incarceration, also called boot camp.
It's not uncommon for this to happen. I know the bigger issue is, how did this happen? Family didn't know about it. But this is the process.
Boot camp is a 90-day program available to inmates convicted on certain lesser charges. In September, the judge approved Brazier entering the program.
Without any more significant information beyond that, what's to stop a judge from signing it? And, who's to say that that person shouldn't be entitled because of something else that hasn't been charged?
But until more charges are filed, Brazier is a free man. Foster's whereabouts are still unknown, and her mother is still desperate for the truth.
He can hug his children. He can be kissed on, loved on, and everything else, even though he said what he did. That's justice so far, right?
The search for Zion Foster continues, but Detroit police have said this has become a recovery effort, although the case remains wide open.
Zion's mother was never told by Judge Servito that this was happening. She did get this note from someone close to the case that it could happen.
The document that I received that told me that he was going to be free, it said that this was approved by the judge. My reaction, I'm livid. I'm absolutely livid.
Detroit police spent months picking through a landfill, unable to find Zion's remains. Without Zion's body, Local 4 crime and safety expert Darnell Blackburn says the case just gets more difficult.
The time frame is also a big factor. How long before they even were tipped off? And I think it was several months before they even were tipped off that the remains were in the dump site.
They're talking to him. Our detectives are constitutionally doing everything they can to talk to him, investigate him.
Someone's life is gone. Things are forever changed. And you just get to go back to live your life like nothing's happened.
And right now, Jalen Brazier is free out on parole. Now, we also know September 13th last fall, Judge Servito signed off on Department of Corrections putting Brazier in that boot camp program. We're trying to ask the judge tonight, did he know with the completion of the program that there was a big possibility that Brazier could be released by Department of Corrections? Another big question for Zion's mom, does she have standing in his court to bring this up again, to object to this, to have it reviewed again?